A while ago I watched a video by Eugenie Scott where she was talking about irreducible complexity. Now, for the life of me, I can't seem to find the video again, but in a nutshell, what she said was that intelligent design people come up with examples of irreducible complexity, and then evolutionists refute them, and intelligent design people just come up with this endless stream of alleged examples of irreducible complexity, and evolutionists have to work really hard to refute them. And she said that basically she's describing like this endless stream, saying, well, we refute them, and then they come out with this other, they're like, well, what about this one? And they refute that one too, and they're like, well, what about this one? However, I don't see that that's what's happening. For example, evolutionists claim to have refuted the argument from the bacterial flagellum. And I've read and seen the arguments by people like Ken Miller that supposedly refute the idea that the bacterial flagellum is irreducibly complex, and without going into details with those, I found their arguments to be very much hand-waving, and a lot of times they didn't even really address the actual arguments of irreducible complexity. Sometimes they'd show variation in the irreducibly complex system and then say, well, see, that proves that it's not, that proves that it doesn't have to be exactly like it is. But of course, that's not what irreducible complexity was saying to begin with. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, actually, you know what? I'm not going into describing what irreducible complexity is in this video. Eugenie Scott has claimed that that intelligent design people are basically moving the goalposts. She's saying that, well, they keep coming out with these alleged examples of irreducible complexity, and we keep refuting them, and then they keep coming out with this endless stream. But actually, in reality, if you read Darwin's Black Box, and you sit down and really read it, this was a book written by a biochemist named Michael Behe. He wrote it in the 1990s, and it's what really popularized the intelligent design movement. It was around before that, but I think this is really the origin of species of the intelligent design movement. It's what really got things going. And in that book, he coined the term irreducible complexity, and gave several examples, and he also gave counter arguments to what he thought would be the supposed refutations later on. And it's interesting because if you actually sit down and read his book and then you watch the supposed refutations, they actually just rehash the arguments that he expected to be getting to begin with. Arguments that he actually refuted in his book. And very often they'll say, well, the intelligent design community never addresses this argument when it comes to irreducible complexity. It's like, well, you know, if you read the actual book where we get the idea of irreducible complexity from, if you read the first one, it's there. The supposed refutation is right there. I find it really strange that she can say, well, I guess we have freedom of speech in this country. People can say whatever they want, but what people say isn't necessarily true. And of course, people will try to say sometimes whatever they can to get you to think like them. And in this case, I think that's exactly what Eugenie Scott is doing. She's saying, well, we keep refuting their arguments, and they just keep coming on with this endless stream of irreducibly complex examples. And I'm like, actually, they've kind of stuck with the same examples right along. Bacterial flagellum, biochemistry of even the simplest so-called eye. Actually, just watched a video where Eugenie Scott supposedly refuted the irreducible complexity of the eye. It's like, but she didn't even address the argument of the biochemistry of even the simplest light-sensitive spot, which is quite complicated if you read what Michael Behe has to say on the matter. Blood clotting. All these different things that evolutionists have supposedly refuted, these basic examples of irreducible complexity, just the basic ones that Michael Behe gave in his original book, they haven't refuted any of them. And so sitting there lamenting, oh, well, we have to keep refuting all of these constant, endless examples of irreducible complexity. Honestly, that's on her. That's not true what's going on, because they haven't refuted a single one. of the original examples that Michael Behe gave. They haven't even really, usually when they supposedly refute his arguments, they don't even address his arguments. They just kind of dismiss them or misrepresent them. Sometimes they'll try to say, well, irreducible complexity means every single part needs to be there all at once. No, that's not what irreducible complexity says. Irreducible complexity says there are a number of key components that are needed in order to make the system function and do the job that it has. Automobile is a perfect example. Michael Behe used a mousetrap, but I'm going to use an automobile. In order to have an automobile work, you need to have an engine, you need to have some kind of fuel source, you need to have wheels or some kind of substitute for those, you need to have a driver, be it a human or a computer. In order to have an automobile, there are several key components that need to be there in order for it to function. Now, does that mean that you can't take off the rear view mirrors, take out the air conditioning, take off the roof, take out all the windows, take out the airbags, and still have a functioning automobile? Yeah, you can take off quite a few parts and still have a functioning automobile. But it's still irreducibly complex because there is a core number of parts that, if any one of them were removed, the entire system would fail to function as an automobile. Does that mean that you can't use it as a greenhouse, or as Ken Miller does the mousetrap, can't use it as a paperweight? Of course not. But the fact that you have a functional system that performs a certain function, and if you remove any of a number of core components, it can't perform that function at all, that really is a challenge for evolution. That's a major problem. Evolutionists think they've solved that problem, but if you read their arguments and if you read both sides, you'll really start to see the hand waving of evolution. There's a proverb, and it's, never mind if you don't believe the Bible. I think that this proverb stands on its own merit, regardless of whether or not you believe the Bible's from God. And the proverb is Proverbs 18:17. It says, "The first to present his case seems right until another comes forward and questions him." In other words, the first person to speak usually sounds right. They usually sound like they have a good argument. And that's the thing about evolution, is people go to schools and they watch the TV and they hear all of these impressive sounding arguments for evolution. And then they hear kind of straw man arguments about creation that are then refuted. But they never hear the actual arguments from the scientists who are creationists themselves, or intelligent design advocates, whichever the case may be. All they hear is kind of this one-sided thing. And you know what? They might go to church and hear some person talk who doesn't know what they're talking about, and then the problem only gets even worse. I had a Sunday school teacher who thought she was refuting evolution and didn't even understand it. And that actually did a lot of damage, because I grew up thinking, oh, creationists just don't understand evolution, because I had a Sunday school teacher who didn't know what she was talking about. I had no idea that there were plenty of PhD scientists out there who disagreed. So, anyway, I think that any more talking would pretty much be deviation from this video. I just find it interesting how she can lament and say, oh, well, these intelligent design people, they have this constant stream of alleged examples of irreducible complexity, and we keep having to refute them, and evolution's striving forward against the critics. And one by one, this endless line of irreducible complexity is being refuted. It's like, no. Intelligent design people have pretty much stuck to the same core arguments. And I actually remember Michael Behe kind of addressing this claim. He said that, well, yeah, if you were to refute the bacterial flagellum, for example, that might later on, that doesn't prove that other things aren't irreducibly complex, but as you keep going, and if you were to keep refuting several examples, then we could see the equivalence in other cases. So you might not have bacterial flagellum, but you might have something that's similar in its shape and complexity. Okay, you can start seeing how this is probably not irreducibly complex, and as you start accumulating refutations of what were thought to be irreducibly complex, then other things start becoming less of a burden for Darwinism. It's not that you have to refute this endless stream one at a time. It's that, hey, once you've refuted one, then other similar examples start losing their weight. So the idea that evolution is marching forward against this endless stream of irreducibly complex, supposed examples of irreducible complexity, I think it's utter nonsense. Because they're not even really addressing the real arguments the intelligent design people are making. They misrepresent the definition of irreducible complexity. They misrepresent the arguments that they make from the eye, for example. They're not talking about a complete vertebrate eye, they're just talking about a light-sensitive spot. But of course I plan to talk about that more in a different video. I plan to make a video where I'm really talking about the eye. But anyway, check out my website, which is blueslug.com. Slug is spelled with 2 G's. That's my blueslug.com is my science search engine. I designed it for science students who needed a decent search engine that's designed for them. And then I also added a second search engine on there, which is designed for scientists. And if you're an advanced student like 3rd or 4th year and you're looking for journal articles, the one that's made for scientists, the journal search, is great for you. Blueslug.com, and then also check out my blog, which is greenslug.com. And again, slug is spelled with 2 G's. You'll see the names of those appear in a minute on the screen. Subscribe, comment, rate, and hope I didn't ramble too much in this video. I hope this was decent. This is Greg, out.